LinkedIn Sales Navigator and that integration and how nicely that works together. But before we dive in, I just wanted to take a second here real quick in regards to supporting of the Chicago Public Schools through the Children's First Fund. So if you have not donated yet, make sure you do that. You can use that QR code on your screen. So let's just go ahead and dive in directly. So I wanted to introduce myself real quick to you guys. My name is Dian Taylor. I am a director at RSM, and I'm also an MVP. I have a blog on D365goddess.com. I try to write new content every week. There's also several articles about what I'm presenting on today. I write about a lot of the new stuff that's coming out. So definitely take a look there. You can also follow me on Twitter at D365goddess, and I have a YouTube channel as well. And if you guys want to connect with me on LinkedIn, I would love that as well. So I'm a white woman with long dark blonde hair. Today I'm wearing a black shirt and I'm presenting from my home office, which also serves as a guest room. So what we're going to discuss today is the configuration of both, right, LinkedIn Sales Navigator and also the configuration in Dynamics 365, because you need to obviously configure those from both applications. Then we're going to talk about data validation. I'm going to have a lot of demos in here as well, because I am really a visual person, and I'm sure you guys would prefer watching a demo versus just death by slides. So then we're going to talk about data synchronization, what it is, how it works, smart links, being able to create records from LinkedIn into Dynamics 365. We can actually now also create leads and contact records directly from a LinkedIn profile. Then I'll show you how we can embed the Sales Navigator widget on a form in Dynamics 365, more demos. And lastly, I'm not an expert in pricing, but I actually got this from the LinkedIn team, where they gave me this nice little slide that kind of shows you the pricing for that and some of the things that you need in order to purchase Microsoft Relationship Sales. And I'll talk about all of that a little bit later as well. So most of you probably have heard of the integration between Dynamics 365 and LinkedIn Sales Navigator, but you probably, or you might not exactly know all the details on how everything works. Now, keep in mind, I'm not going to cover all of the features in Sales Navigator. I'm just going to cover what's relevant through this integration with Dynamics 365 and LinkedIn Sales Navigator. So let's start talking about the configuration. So we're going to be able to move some data between these applications, which means that we will have to enable and configure this integration, right? Like I said earlier, both in LinkedIn Sales Navigator and in the Dynamics 365 application as well. So I'm going to talk about what data can be synchronized a little later in this presentation, but if you kind of think about it, with data flowing into Dynamics 365, this is going to give us more options to perform actions on the data as well, right? Because now it actually gets pushed to Dynamics 365. So think about being able to use Power Automate to automate certain processes. You can set up alerts, right? For example, when a LinkedIn activity is created in Dynamics 365. And then, of course, again, because that data lives in Dynamics 365 as well, we can also report on LinkedIn activities, right? So we have access to all of those things through this integration. Obviously, before you can do that, there are some prerequisites that you really need to consider. And you can see some of those on the screen. So another thing that's important to note is Dynamics 2016 or Dynamics 365 on-premise is not supported. Now, take that with a little bit of grain of salt when I'm talking about Dynamics 365 on-premise is not supported. You can still use some of the functionality, but for the full functionality, you would really need that online instance of Dynamics 365. Now, there's two different ways that you can get LinkedIn Sales Navigator with Dynamics 365 Sales, right? So for example, you can have a Microsoft Relationship Sales subscription. And I'll talk about that at the end of this presentation, but let me mention this quickly. What that means is you purchase this subscription and then basically you get 2 for 1 almost, right? You get a Dynamics 365 sales license and you get a LinkedIn Navigator license as well. So you get a cheaper price for Microsoft Relationship Sales. Now, there are a couple of hooks there, and I'll talk about that a little bit later once we start talking about pricing and licensing of that. So if you don't have Microsoft Relationship Sales, let's say you already have Dynamics 365 Sales and you just want to add LinkedIn Sales Navigator to that, you can also purchase LinkedIn Sales Navigator team licenses or a LinkedIn Sales Navigator enterprise licenses. And of course, right, the name already kind of gives it away. The enterprise licenses has most of the functionality that you'll be seeing today. Now, in order to configure the Sales Navigator part, you're going to need a Sales Navigator administrator license, obviously, and then you would have to have also that team member seat as well. Browsers, right? Make sure you have JavaScript enabled, and obviously disable your pop-up blocker for that Dynamics 365 domain as well. So those are some of the prerequisites. Now, let's talk a little bit about that configuration. So by default, the LinkedIn solutions are not automatically installed. So you would need to have an administrator that can install that solution package before other users can work with them. Now, this is not really hard to do because you can start the installation by navigating, as you can see on the screen, to business management. And then you click here on this LinkedIn Sales Navigator button to kind of start that installation. And that's going to launch the installation window that you see right over here. You're just going to go and click continue, and that's going to then start and finish that installation. Once that installation is done, you can then go back to that previous screen and you can click on the LinkedIn Sales Navigator, this option again. So once you've done that, then you, like I said, when you click on that, you're going to have this screen that pops up where you can enable some of those settings that you can see on this. And I'm going to go into what some of those settings mean. Obviously, you want to enable that integration first, right? That's just that, enabling it. And then we have some additional options. You can see on the page here, it says photo refresh. So there's some additional options that you can turn on or turn off. And again, I'll be going into details for those as well. And then what you also can do is that you can actually turn on the LinkedIn Sales Navigator controls on Dynamics 365 forms. So those are these tabs are hidden by default, and then you can just basically unhide them. So if you wanted to actually put a widget on a form, let's say you have, you know, a custom account form that you created or something like that, and you want to add a widget on the form, and that widget will show you data from LinkedIn Sales Navigator, or from LinkedIn, I should say, right? It shows you a little bit of the profile. Again, we'll get into that a little bit later as well. But you're going to be able to configure those as well, and I'll show you how you can do that. Now let's take a look at the configuration from the LinkedIn Sales Navigator side, right? So what you're going to have to do is really first set up that connection, right, between Sales Navigator and Dynamics 365. And during this setup, you can then enable write back from Sales Navigator to Dynamics 365. And that really what that does, it allows users to save information that's created in Sales Navigator back to Dynamics 365. And I'm going to talk about what are some of those items that can be written back to Dynamics 365. So the other thing that I wanted to mention real quick, because this just came out the last quarter, previously we could only connect to a production environment. I had several people reaching out to me and they said like, hey, I want to try this with my Sandbox. Can I do that? That was not possible. But as you can see now, if you actually go here to admin settings, there's now a Sandbox item here as well. So you can turn that on as well. You can just go ahead and set up a connection to your Sandbox. There's some limitations to that as well. I think that it's only 30 days and you can do a max of 10 users that you need to add to that instance, but I'll talk about that a little bit later as well. So the way that works is you're just going to go ahead and click on this Connect to CRM button. Let me just go back here, right? If you want to go ahead and set that up, you're going to click on Connect to CRM. It's going to ask you what system do you want to connect to, and then obviously you're going to click here on Microsoft Dynamics. Then you log in, and I have a little bit of a video on that to kind of show you what that looks like. But then you just put in your credentials or the credentials that you're using for this integration, and that is it. And it takes about 24 hours for the data to kind of, synchronize with your data in Dynamics 365. So if it doesn't show up immediately, that's why. Now, I was going a little bit too fast, right? I was just talking about this. The sales Sandbox support, right? So this is simultaneously, right? You don't have to disconnect from your production and then, reconnect to your Sandbox. No, you can connect them simultaneously. So again, after you have that instance connected, your Sandbox, the administrator still needs to go into Sales Navigator and enable those users so they can start testing some of those features. Like I said earlier, there can only be a maximum of 10 users activated within that Sandbox environment, and that is for a period of 30 days. So once that user has been added to that Sandbox environment, they're going to see a banner that you see on the screenshot that's kind of showing them like, hey, you're connected to the Sandbox. You're testing these features in your Sandbox environment right now. So I think that's a nice feature. And you can even see that you have the option to disconnect from here as well. And that just falls back into your production environment then. Now let's talk a little bit about some of the features with this, right? You can see here, right, those Sales Navigator integration settings. We saw earlier photo refresh was on there. And then we also see here enable LinkedIn updates. I'm going to talk a little bit about that, what that means. So by the way, this data validation actually does require an enterprise license. So if you have a team license for LinkedIn Sales Navigator, you won't get access to any of this stuff. So I just wanted to mention that. So after the synchronization has been configured, you can then turn on that data validation right here, right? And when data validation is turned on in Dynamics 365, there's a couple of things that are being added to Dynamics 365. So for example, there is a new option set field, and the system name of that is MSDYN_org change status. And the display name is not a company flag. That's actually added to the contact entity or contact table, right? I need to say that in Dynamics 365. And the values in that field are no feedback, not a company, and ignore. So the way that this works is that when the current company of a LinkedIn contact does not match the account the contact is related to in Dynamics 365, the field is going to be set to not add company. And on top of that, we're going to have some additional views as well, such as the two contact views that show you all contacts not at the company. So that's using that filter or that field that was newly created by this integration to kind of show you all the contacts that had left the company, right, that they're at, and then my contacts not at company, again, using that same field to filter. And there's also a really nice visual when you actually navigate to the org chart, where you're going to be able to see a big red dot of all of the contacts that are no longer at that account. So I'll show you that in a little bit later in a demo as well. Now, keep in mind that this validation only happens for contacts that are related to accounts and opportunities, and just regular contacts that are owned by Sales Navigator users and that have that CRM sync, right, obviously turned on as well. Now, again, keep in mind that these validation settings, that also occurs every 24 hours. So if somebody leaves today, you're not going to see that in Dynamics 365 until, right, until a little bit later, later 24 hours after, right, after the fact. So keep that in mind. Now, besides that option set being added to the contact table, it will also, I'm sorry, I already talked about that. I'm repeating myself here. There's also some opportunity views that are being added, and that also has to do with that same field. So as you guys probably know, you can actually add a contact field that's, I don't believe out of the box it's on there, but you can drag it onto the form. And that's going to show you whether or not there's a contact related to an opportunity. So there's going to be two views: all opportunities at risk, contact left, my opportunities at risk, contact left. So those could be related to that, right? Whoever is the customer in there, or you can also take a look at that contact field as well and kind of filter on that as well. Now, we didn't talk about the photo refresh field yet, right? So you see it here on the screenshot. What that is it actually updates the contact record in Dynamics 365 with the most recent profile picture from LinkedIn, right? If they're matched. And this is obviously also a daily sync that happens. Now, data validation also helps with the matching of Dynamics 365 records with LinkedIn records. And you're going to probably say, okay, well, what is matching? Well, matching is exactly what it sounds like, right? You have a profile in LinkedIn Sales Navigator, or you just have a profile on LinkedIn, and you can match that with records in Dynamics 365, right? So you can match organizations with accounts, and you can match LinkedIn profiles, for example, with contacts and with lead records. So the match actually happens automatically, but you can also manually match these items as well. And I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about what some of the fields are that are used to automatically match the lead and contact, right? So they're looking at first name, last name, title, company, country, and then phone and email. So like I said earlier, it also matches these company profiles with accounts in Dynamics 365, right? And those fields are company name, the full address, right? Website, phone, industry, and a number of employees as well. Now, obviously, I think it's needless to say that obviously the more data that you have populated in those fields in Dynamics 365, the more accurate these matches are going to be. But like I said earlier, if a match is not accurate, you can unmatch it manually, and then you can just go back and find the correct record and match them together, right? This could also be if there's no match that's found at all, or if there's multiple matches, for example, because that happens a lot as well. And then we have some additional configuration options. I already talked about this shortly, and I'll get into a little bit more detail. We can create contacts or leads from Sales Navigator to Dynamics 365. We also have InMail and messaging. So if you're sending a message from LinkedIn Sales Navigator to someone, do you want to also track that InMail or that message in Dynamics 365? You can turn that on. The same thing with Smart Links. Smart Links is, I think the easiest way to describe this is kind of like, think of it as OneDrive. And you give somebody the link to the OneDrive, right, where you have all of your documents stored. The nice thing with Smart Links is if somebody accesses that your documents that you have stored there, you're going to get a notification. And that notification can also be written back to Dynamics 365. And then lastly, we also have Team Link. I think this is a really nice feature as well, because this allows us to view and search any of our team's connections as well. So if I'm not connected to a particular person, but somebody on my team is, right, under that same Sales Navigator subscription, then I can access their connections as well. So that's kind of what that is. Now I have a little bit of a video here to kind of show you how that connection works. Again, it's very simple. You just click Connect to CRM. And it pops up with that window. What do you want to connect to? You're just going to select Dynamics. You just have to put in your domain. Let's just go ahead and give it a second, right? It just fills out the rest there. You just hit continue. And you just put in the credentials here for your Dynamics 365 accounts. And there we go. Give it a second here. You do sign in. And that is it. That's how easy you can connect LinkedIn Sales Navigator to Dynamics 365. So very easy to do. Let's now go ahead and do a little bit of a demo here. Let me just pull up here some of those settings that I talked about, right? So you can start the integration by clicking here. I already have it set up, obviously, right? But this is where you will go first. You can kick off those solution installs, and then you can go back here and then turn on these things, right? Photo refresh, LinkedIn updates, and you can see when was the last time that it was refreshed, when's the next time that's going to be refreshed. Now, there is also now an option. They actually just added this a little bit ago. If you go here to app settings, and you can see here that you have LinkedIn integration from here as well. So you could also kick it off from here. And again, the settings are in here as well. You just click on this. Now I already have it enabled, right? So it's going to tell you, you can click a button here that says, yes, I want to install that. And then if you click here and go to configuration, it takes you to that same screen here where I can click on LinkedIn Sales Navigator and set up some of those items directly from there. Now the integration in Sales Navigator, this is Sales Navigator, right? So I need to go into admin. Let's just go ahead and do that. You can see here, right? Connect your CRM. So I can click on that. And then this is what I was talking about earlier, right? Here's my production instance. And here is my Sandbox instance. So if I wanted to connect this to my Sandbox, I actually have one here. So let's just see if I can do this. I just need this, I think. This guy. So let's just hit start. We're going to say, oh, they changed this. That's interesting. .crm. I have to add that now. And I just click on login. I'm going to pick my accounts. You probably use a service account for this, right? But that's how simple that is, right? There you go. I'm connected. And then it's telling me, all right, now you can configure some settings. So this is where you can turn on, right, the CRM data validation. Do you want to allow people to create leads and contacts in Dynamics 365? If so, you can turn that on over here. Do you want to log the smart link views to CRM, right? If somebody views that smart link, do you want to also write back the messages and emails? Do you want to allow calls? Do you want to log notes? And then we have some advanced features here. And you can see here, to enable additional CRM features, you need to be required to install or enable the Sales Navigator application with your CRM. So here's some instructions, excuse me, and then you can just go ahead and click finish there. And then you can also see here, right, this is now green. I'm going to hit finish. Here is my connection, right? But I do, excuse me, need to add these Sandbox users, right? So you can just go ahead and add a user, right? I can say I'm going to add myself, which I'm not going to do right now. And let's just add Teresa. I'm going to say add. And she is now enabled for the Sandbox. So if I now log in as Teresa, let's go here to LinkedIn. And let's go to Sales Navigator. We should see that orange bar. There you go. I can connect now to CRM, sure. I'm not going to do that right now, but this is kind of what that looks like, right? And if then she wants to reconnect to her production, she just clicks on reconnect to production and bam, she's back in the CRM instance. Now, if I need to disconnect this, right, you just click on disconnect and boom, I am disconnected from my Sandbox. Now, some of the other options that you have in here is, let me just go here to Account Center. You need to obviously, right, once you get LinkedIn Sales Navigator, you need to be able to, you know, send or add some of these licenses to the users, right? So for example, if I want to add a new user, you can actually do that by using your CRM. And this is probably the best way to do this. So you can just go ahead and select the users from your CRM instance, right? So I can say, I'm going to give Sandra Hill access, but you need to make sure that this email address, you also have that in your LinkedIn profile, because otherwise it's going to come back and it's going to say, I can't connect because this email address is not related to a profile. So you got to make sure that you do that. And that's very easy to do because you probably all know that you can have multiple email addresses associated to your LinkedIn profile. All right, now let's talk about the data that's going to be synchronized from the one application to the other one, right? So we just saw that we can set up that synchronization bi-directional, right, in Dynamics 365 and in LinkedIn Sales Navigator. So let's talk about what's actually being pushed over. So I'm going to start with what will be synced from Dynamics 365 to LinkedIn Sales Navigator. And I actually got a lot of questions about this because I think a lot of people think that as soon as a connection is made on LinkedIn, then that connection will be pushed over to Dynamics 365 as a contact or as a lead. Or I heard people say that, oh no, all connections are going to be pushed over to Dynamics 365. So that's not true. None of that is true, right? We can pick and choose if we have a connection or any profile in Dynamics or in LinkedIn, and then we can choose to create a lead record or a contact record in Dynamics 365. So I'll talk about that a little bit later. So let's take a look first, right, to the Dynamics 365 to LinkedIn Sales Navigator integration. Now, it's not really write back, even though they call it write back, because I'm not writing data really back to Sales Navigator or to LinkedIn. I'm just connecting those profiles, right? So the way that works is, like I said earlier, you can have open opportunities that are related to an account or a contact or both, and those will be synchronized to profiles of accounts or companies, I should say, and contacts or leads in LinkedIn Sales Navigator. The way that works is that when users access Sales Navigator and they navigate to different lists, there's going to be an account list and I think a lead list as well. There's going to be an auto-created My CRM accounts list in LinkedIn Sales Navigator. Now, this list contains all of the Dynamics 365 accounts with open opportunities where the stage is greater than whatever stage we have set up in the LinkedIn preferences. And that is a stage that's set by the administrator for all users. Now, if you look on the close column, and I'll show you a screenshot, let me actually do that right now. If you look at this close column here, this is in LinkedIn Sales Navigator, right? This is the My CRM accounts that I just talked about. That's basically those CRM accounts that are matched with these CRM accounts, or I should say CRM accounts, listen to me, the company profiles in LinkedIn. So if you have any deals in there, if you click on close date, it's going to show you those opportunities directly in LinkedIn Sales Navigator, right? So you can kind of see that on that screenshot. So I just wanted to show that real quick. And you're also going to have a lead list. You're going to see My CRM leads and contacts, which shows obviously the leads and the contacts from Dynamics 365, again, synchronized to some of those contact profiles in LinkedIn. There's also going to be a CRM button within Sales Navigator. And if you click that button, you're going to be able to open the matching record in Dynamics 365. So let me actually show that to you guys. Let me see here. Let's first go back to LinkedIn Sales Navigator. I don't want to go to the admin settings. Let's go to LinkedIn Sales Navigator. So these are the lists that I was just talking about, right? So I have accounts list. This is that system generated list that is synchronized over, right? Which contains accounts that I own or accounts that are related to opportunities that I own. that are past a particular stage that I have configured. So you can see here, this is that close date, right? So for 4th, we have this close date. I'm going to click on that. And I can see now that I have an opportunity here with them. If I click on that, that will open up that opportunity, as you can see here in Dynamics in Sales Hub. I'm not going to wait for that to load. So you can also filter this, right? If I want to see all of these opportunities or just my opportunities, etc., you can filter on that. Now, I also talked about the lead list, right? Again, my CRM leads and customer leads and contacts. This is actually a new one. I haven't seen this one. So this is past customers at new companies. So these are, let me see, a list of past customers associated with your company's closed won opportunities are now at a new company. Wow, that's interesting. Okay, I need to update my list here. Let's see here. So here we can kind of see, right? These are some new leads that have been added. So for example, if I go here to John Harrison, you can see here it has that CRM icon. If I click on that, I can just go ahead and view that CRM record. So if I click on that, this started in Dynamics 365, and then it matched it with a contact in LinkedIn Sales Navigator. You also see that that picture has been added as well. So that's kind of how that works. Now let's talk about the LinkedIn Sales Navigator to Dynamics 365 right back. Now we all know that we have the ability to send emails and messages from Sales Navigator to contacts in LinkedIn. Now, through this integration, you can perform these actions, obviously from LinkedIn Sales Navigator, but you can also do that from within Dynamics 365. You're going to see a copy to CRM checkbox on that message window. And obviously, if you check that box, then that activity will be created in Dynamics 365 as well. So unfortunately, currently, if somebody responds to an email or to that LinkedIn message, you're not going to see that activity being created in Dynamics 365. But a little birdie told me that this is on the roadmap. So hopefully that will come out soon. And then you're also going to have the ability to create notes in Sales Navigator. You're again going to see a copy to CRM slider. The only difference here is that notes that are created or updated in Dynamics 365 will not synchronize back to Sales Navigator, right? So again, this is just LinkedIn Sales Navigator to Dynamics 365. And then there's also a mobile app for Sales Navigator. So you can call somebody by using the app, and then when that call ends, you're going to see a phone call pop up asking if you want to save the phone call. And then again, you will see that slider whether or not you want to save it to Dynamics 365 as well. And then we also have Smart Links. So I kind of talked about this, right? Smart Link is kind of like a OneDrive where you can just you can share your contacts, your files, and your documents with your customers and your prospects. And then when the content is accessed, you're going to receive a notification. This could be, an email. I also get a mobile notification since I have the LinkedIn app on my phone. But that view is also going to be visible on the contact record in Dynamics 365, obviously, if there is a matched contact in Dynamics 365. So you can use these smart links, by the way, outside of Sales Navigator, right? So if you create this smart link, you can send that link through chat, through email, like however you want, right? But you can also send them through LinkedIn messages, obviously, as well. And this is kind of what that looks like, right? I'm going to be able to, this is my message window. You can see here that I actually sent him a message. I hope you're doing good. Here's the link to the documentation. And then again, when he accesses that, I can go back and I can view how long he was accessing some of those files and that smart link as well, which is a very nice feature. And this is where you can see that little button, right? I can copy the message to CRM, I can send it, and that will create that activity showing that I sent him a message. Now, LinkedIn Sales Navigator also allows users to create a contact or a lead record in Dynamics 365 from a LinkedIn profile. So there's no copying and pasting here. there's just a button that you're going to click. So before you can, excuse me, enable this functionality, you need to make sure again, right? Excuse me, that this feature is enabled obviously in those admin settings. So you can require an email address to be mandatory in order to create the record in Dynamics 365. And here's the thing that I really like. You actually have the ability to select the lead source value that should be associated to contacts that are created from Sales Navigator. And this also goes for leads. So the field is actually looking at the lead source code field in Dynamics 365. So if you add the values there, then you're going to be able to see that in the settings area in LinkedIn Sales Navigator. And people are probably going to say, what are you talking about? Okay, so let me go back here. Let me see here, production. I think it's over here. They keep changing the screen, so I have to kind of, let's see here, allow leads, create leads, create contacts. So this is what I'm talking about. This option set. So if you set a source here, this is going to write that value to Dynamics 365. The values that you see in here are related to, to this lead source field. And this is related to the contact table, right? So you can see here, I have Sales Navigator and I have other. I just added this Sales Navigator one. So I can set that when new leads, excuse me, when new contacts are created, so that, right, it will automatically set this as a lead source. And the same goes here for leads, right? You can see here, I have a lot more in here. This is that out of the box field that you can just update, and then you can set, right, where these leads are coming from. So it's a very nice feature as well. So this is that part that I just talked about, right? Being able to go to, from LinkedIn Sales Navigator, to go to a profile, and then you can click save, and then you have this little button that popped up. Do I want to create a lead, or do I want to create a contact in Dynamics 365? Now, you do need an enterprise license for this, for Sales Navigator, so keep that in mind. So when you click any of these buttons, add lead or add contact to CRM, there's actually going to be a duplication check. That's going to see if this person is already in Dynamics 365. Now, if a duplicate is found, then you can just simply match those two records together. And if there's not a duplicate, then you can just go ahead and move forward and create that contact record by updating the fields. Now, some of the fields that you will see, you can see that here on the screen. You can see accounts. This is actually looking at the accounts table in Dynamics 365. So you will have to select an account. Then if you have an account selected, then it actually shows you here, this lookup to opportunities in Dynamics 365. And once you have that selected, you can also set a stakeholder role for this person on this opportunity. Then you can see some of these fields are going to be pre-populated, such as first name, last name, job title, and country. But unfortunately, the email address and the phone number are not pre-populated, so you're going to have to enter those. Now, besides write-back capabilities, we also have the ability to view a LinkedIn profile directly from within the context of a Dynamics 365 record, and this is done by an iframe. You're going to be able to not just view data, but even use some of the LinkedIn functionality directly from within that widget. So, for example, you can send an email or a message. You can send a request to be introduced to someone. You can view the connections that you have. I'll demo this shortly so you can kind of see what that looks like. Now, again, right, we already have the LinkedIn widget on the screen by default when we're installing and enabling that integration, but you can also manually add the widget to a form. And that's kind of what this looks like, right? You can see here, I have some information regarding Angel directly here on my form through this widget. And that's actually very, very simple to do. You're just gonna drag a name field on your form. In this particular case, you then select what type of control you want to add. And I'm sure most of you have worked with controls, right? You double click on the field, you click on controls, If you want to add, if this is related to an account, then you pick the Sales Navigator accounts, company profile control. If this is related to a contact or a lead, you're going to pick that LinkedIn Sales Navigator lead because that's the member profile in LinkedIn Sales Navigator. And that's really all you have to do. Just save and publish your changes and that's it. So, all right, so now let's take a look at some of the functionality, right? We are probably all dying to see that. So I'm just going to go back here. I have a contact here, and I am just going to close this here. So first of all, right, we get this LinkedIn Sales Navigator tab that comes with the installation of those solutions, right? When we are enabling LinkedIn Sales Navigator right back, or when we're enabling the integration, I should say, sorry. So what you can do here is as you can see some detailed profile information. I talked about matching earlier, right? If I click here on unsave, it's going to unmatch it, and then I can match it with a different profile, right? I can also go ahead and send a message from here. If I click here on message, I can just start typing. You can see that that same message window is already on here, so there's really no need for me to go in here. But if I want to log this and save that message to Dynamics 365, I just need to make sure that this box is checked. Then when I type in a message, hello, Angel, did you get the invoice? I'm going to go ahead and say send. Message was sent. I'm going to go click here on summary, and I'm going to refresh this. And you can see here, this is immediately, right? So that's very, very nice. Let's go back here to LinkedIn Sales Navigator. I also have the ability to look at some icebreakers, and this is really why we're using LinkedIn Sales Navigator or social selling in this context, right? I can see here the shared connections I have with Angel. We're both related to all of those folks, so I can start my conversation based on that. We are also both in, we both worked at RSM. He used to work for RSM, so I can use that as an icebreaker as well. And then I can see that we are actually in a couple of mutual group together, so I can use that as an icebreaker as well. Now, if this is a new account or contact that I'm trying to break into, I can use the get introduced function, right? I can kind of hover over our mutual connections and I can see what they have in common, right? So for example, he's in 2 groups with Igor. Kevin, there's no connection. Franz, also no connection. Rachel and him worked at RSM. Oh, that might be a good idea. And then I see Victor and Angel are in 3 mutual groups together. So I can then ask for an introduction, send that message to Rachel. Again, log to CRM. Oops. You will need to create a CRM profile. I don't know what the heck has happened here. Oh, it's because Rachel is not inside of my CRM. That's why, right? But if she is, I can log that in CRM, and that is it. So you can see how that works together very, very nicely. Now, the other thing that you see over here is that LinkedIn account profile. He's currently linked in here to RSM as the account, but that might be incorrect, because if I go here back to his profile, it actually shows here that he's the purchasing manager at SA. So, and actually I have him in here. I just changed this at the A-Datum Corporation. So we talked earlier, oh, let me actually go back here. We talked earlier about a field being added, right? And that's the not at company flag. So through the integration with LinkedIn Sales Navigator, that's the field that's being added. And this is data that's being updated every 24 hours. Since the account record is not the same as it is on his LinkedIn profile, it's going to be set to not at company. And I'm getting very nice visuals with that, because if you go and look on the org chart of the account that he currently belongs to in Dynamics 365, you can see I get these red dots. Oh, there's a lot of people that left, right? So if I now click on that, I have the ability to now change his account information, right? It's even, hey, is this contact still with this org? Because you might want to update that. And then I can just look for an account and I can pick a different one and update that contact directly from here. So that's a very nice visual that you get with that. There's some additional views, right? All contacts, not a company. I talked about this. This is just a view that obviously you can copy, you can edit, but this is another way where you're going to be able to review that. So let's go back here to Angel. Now, I also talked about, you saw earlier, I sent that message from Sales Navigator. We also talked a little bit about being able to create these, let me go back, oops, being able to create a smart link, right? And that's nothing but just a folder, right? I'm going to say docs for Angel, and you can add your documents here. Sure, let's add an invoice, see, log to CRM. I got to wait until this processes, and I'm going to go ahead and create that. I'm going to copy the link, and then I can send that to Angel, right? However, email, I can do another message, however I want to do that. Now, again, the nice thing is that when he accesses it, I'm going to be able, and this just takes just a couple of minutes usually. Let's go to activity type. These are some of those LinkedIn activities, right? You can see here, message from Sales Navigator, smart links content viewed, right? So when he views that information, I get that new type of activity. I even have the URL in here as well, so I can review that as well, right? So now I can see, oh, he accessed it on October 23rd for 2 seconds, 3 minutes, 28 minutes. Can I even get more? Yeah, I can see what he viewed, right? There's only one quote in here, so he doesn't view any other items, but you could really have the ability to track some of that behavior in Dynamics 365. Gosh, I keep going back here. Right, so I wanted to show you guys that as well. Now let's take a look here. Some other things that we can do. Let's go back to, I keep going to the wrong screen, Sales Navigator, this guy. Let's go back home to Sales Navigator. I already showed you guys the account list and the lead list. I did want to show you, let's actually go here to him, the ability, right, to also add some notes, right? This is where we can add a note, and then we can say log that note to CRM, to Dynamics 365. This is where you can do that. And then if we want to add a person, let's just see here if I can show you guys that. No. Sure, let's open up Bill. I can say save, right? And this is where it's now create leads list. Oh, here it is, not save. Add lead to CRM, add contact to CRM. It's now searching for matches. And then you can see, right, I don't have this account, so I probably want to create the account first. And then I can just go ahead and save that record in Dynamics 365. So this is also a very nice feature that, again, you need that enterprise license for. So now let's take a look at some of the pricing. Now, this is Microsoft Relationships pricing. So keep in mind, this is what I'm talking about earlier, right? You can see that here, LinkedIn Sales Navigator Enterprise with Dynamics 365 for Sales Enterprise, or LinkedIn Sales Navigator Team with Dynamics 365. So this is what that pricing looks like. In order to purchase Microsoft Relationship Sales, your organization needs to have a Microsoft Enterprise agreement in place. And also keep in mind, there is a 10-seat minimum, so you cannot buy any less than 10 seats. Now, if you don't have a Microsoft Enterprise agreement, there's no panic here. You can still purchase LinkedIn Sales Navigator separately. So that's the next thing I wanted to show you guys. You can see here the different plans, right? So you would need Team, I believe, or Enterprise. So you can kind of see that here. You kind of don't see the pricing on here, right? So this one is $64.99. I don't know if this has changed yet, but I just wanted to mention real quick, the enterprise license is currently $1,600 annually per user, and there is a 10-seat minimum. There's no minimums for professional and team. So I just wanted to mention that real quick. Oops, yeah. I did want to go here. So this is kind of showing you what you get, right, with professional and team and enterprise. And if you want to take a look for yourself, take a look here And let me see if I can throw this in the chat, because that would probably be very helpful. I need to copy this from the presentation. Here is my compare plans. Let me see if I can throw that in there. Yeah, so you can take a look there for the details on that. But like I said, for some of that write back feature functionality, you do need that enterprise license. So definitely keep that in mind. That's all I had. Let's see if there's any questions as we thank our sponsors.
Yes, of course. I'm not seeing anything in chat, but if anybody does have any questions, we have a couple of minutes.
Absolutely.
This is great information. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, it's sometimes it's kind of hard to find